Hello and welcome to another edition of As the Blade Turns. My name is Dave Leese and this is your Sunday evening update. I wanted to come on here and give a brief update because the Court of Arbitration for Sport has concluded its hearing in the Kamila Valieva case, and they're moving on to the arbitrators actually debating and discussing amongst themselves what the outcome will be. They are attempting to have a result. It's believed that it could come as early as after the ice dance medal winners press conference, but with many things in this case, we simply do not know. But it is interesting that we were getting a couple of leaks out of the actual hearing, which is highly unusual. From the New York Times, it said, CAS hearings normally take place under the strictest secrecy, and one involving accusations against a minor required the utmost care. Yet while the hearing was taking place, several members of the news media were surprised to receive an email from an IOC official that included a video of an interview with the head of the Russian Olympic Committee that was played during the hearing. In the clip, which was described to the New York Times by a person who had viewed it, the Russian official, Stanislav Bozniakov, slammed the handling of Valieva's sample by the Russian anti-doping agency's Swedish testing partner. Sharing the clip was extremely unusual. The IOC and Russian Olympic Committee are on opposing sides in the case. The video outlining an aspect of the Russia's defense in the hearing appeared to be only one shared by the IOC with members of the news media. So this is the only clip that was actually shared, but we are seeing what the Russian argument is. It is giving a number of people pause to wonder if Kamila Valieva will actually be allowed to compete. Obviously, this is just part of the hearing, and there is so much going on and so much paranoia, but it does seem that the credibility of the Olympics and of figure skating sport are really at stake here. I talked to one coach at the Olympics who has a ladies figure skater in the event, and they said to me, they said, when I asked what their opinion on whether Kamila Valieva should be banned, they said, of course, tell me one sport where you can test positive for a substance and you can still compete. One. And I think that that's very true. People will put so much on the fact that this is 15 because we all love her beautiful performances, but at the same time, this comes down to something so much bigger than Kamila Valieva. Unfortunately, her career is in the balance here, but she is a symbol of something so much greater than herself. And it is truly unfortunate. I truly do believe that the Olympic movement is at stake here, as is the credibility of figure skating as a whole. Eteri Tutberidze was recently the coach of the year of the ISU. This anesthesiologist, Dr. Shevetsky, is present at all of the major figure skating competitions. It's here in plain sight. If the ISU and the IOC don't take action now, is there anything really left of the sport? Who's to say that the next generation of athletes from all over the world couldn't be doping? Because what would be there to deter them? Yes, it is extremely unfortunate that Kamila Valieva's Olympic dream would be, extinguished by this. Given the shelf life of Russian female figure skaters, we can believe that this is her one and only shot to become an Olympic champion. Unfortunately, her coaches robbed her of that. Unfortunately, the system robbed her of that. Even though the arbitrators may be the ones who will not actually allow her to compete at the Olympics, they aren't those who did that to her. One could argue that her parents were complicit in this. One could argue that we as viewers are complicit in all of this by allowing it to go on under plain sight. Why? Why is only one figure skating country able to produce these quadruple jumps when we have seen plenty of documentaries of physical, emotional humiliation? How many times are we watching the Russian figure skaters get on the scales themselves and talk to us about how many grams they gained during lunch? This was a Russian figure skating documentary produced by Russian TV itself. How many times are we going to watch the doctor being at the boards? We know that this doctor has had many doping scandals. It's all there. We see the body types of Team Tutberidze. We see the unnaturalness of it. We're learning about xenon gas. We've heard about Lupron. We've heard about meldonium. I mean, you start to think that these are drug cocktails that these figure skaters are on, and at what age does it really start? When Slava Zagorodnik was on the show the other day, he talked about monitoring the girls' age in the novice and junior ages, what Valieva would have been in 2018. You begin to wonder, how long are they on? You know, when they want to turn around and say how amazing it is that all of these Russian figure skaters are doing triple axels and quad jumps when they are so young, it's incredible to watch. Of course it is. But how did they get there? And why is it only one country that is consistently able to do those jumps? Is it something in the Russian water, or is there something more to it? That is beyond anything that all of the resources of Japan, of Korea, of Canada, of the United States can somehow not put into play in just the same way that we continue to see this. The United States had great vaulters in gymnastics. They were doing the Aminar vault, but the other countries were actually able to achieve similar results over time. We're not seeing that here. We're not seeing that other athletes are able to achieve these same feats, and we see that it's a conveyor belt of talent, one after another, able to do the same thing and then cast aside for the next girl when they are no longer usable to the system. I think something that has happened and changed a little bit is that people are starting to fall in love with the talents. Medvedeva, when her career had dimmed, it was sad for many of her fans. But at the same time, they still thought it was an anomaly. Now they are seeing the career of Kostornaia dim, just like Medvedeva's dimmed, and you start to wonder, where was she? Why wasn't she here? What happened to that great talent in 2020, and why did things go so awry so dramatically? It's another interesting thing that we have not seen Yana Rudkovskaya or Evgeny Plushenko say anything, and you begin to wonder, how come they're not talking? Because do we really think that if a state-sponsored doping program is helping one school out, why wouldn't they be helping out all of the national team to achieve the same results, to achieve this kind of competitive consistency? You have to wonder why. Why? This is the perfect opportunity for Evgeny Plushenko to say that Eteri Tutberidze is a coach who has no talent of her own, that is abusive, and who is not worthy of the results that she achieves. But he's not doing this. He's not trying to swoop in and say that he is the real legitimate coach in Russia, and you have to wonder why that is. What does he know, or what is he afraid of having exposed about him, because he is being extremely quiet during this time, the one and only time of his entire life. I just wanted to read two things. There was another German article that came out. It was brief, and it was about how mercilessly Russia treats its figure skaters. The case of 15-year-old figure skater Valieva is not an isolated case, says sports expert Daniel Weiss. Russia does everything for success, usually at the expense of young athletes. The Valieva case is shocking, reports Weiss in the Sportschau. Of course, that concerns the entire figure skating scene. The case has a system. The few doping cases in recent years have all come from Russia. What surprises him? Valieva is musicality, emotionally, fantastic pirouettes, great edges, quadruple jumps, technique. You can't dope them to an Olympic victory, and yet in Russia, every ounce is used to make everything possible. For me, Valieva is clearly the victim here. Girls get dropped, especially since the past shows that after such cases, the girls are simply dropped. If she's banned now, no one will be talking about her in 6 months. There are former Olympic champions whose names we've all forgotten, who are now bulimic, have alcohol problems, or are anorexic, but the next child prodigy is already ready. This came from someone close to this actual school that reported this to Sportschau. Weiss hopes that the coaching team around Eteri Tutberidze will be watched very closely. In Russia, they act as if she were the big star coach. However, an informant in Moscow told him that she didn't give a damn about the athletes. To improve the situation, Weiss advocates raising the age minimum for skaters from 15 to 18. Then there will also be equality in competition again, because when the body is fully developed, such insane jumps and turns are no longer possible. It's fairer and healthier. That is something that is certainly up for debate, but it does seem like there could be a point to be had there. There is also a video about this, more in depth, from Sportschau that I will link to in the description box. It is certainly worth watching. I had another Russian viewer send me something written by Lyudmila Petronovskaya, a famous child psychologist, and really the leading child psychologist in Russia. And this was an Instagram post that was written earlier today, and I thought it was really prescient about this situation. The Winter Olympics are coming, and again the theme of sport, of great achievements, and the price athletes pay for them resurfaces. For example, here is a post with a simple list of female skaters of a famous Russian figure skating coach. See the story, they're obviously talking about Eteri Tutberidze. Each young star takes off. receives several medals, and already at 16 or 17 leaves with a crippled body and sometimes mentally. Depressions, nervous breakdowns, and the most dangerous, anorexia, a high mortality disease, because medals were won due to the ban on food and even water, due to performances with fractures, due to prohibited loads, emotional pumping, usually completely sectarian pressure techniques. I don't understand why this is allowed. I don't understand why this is out of control. Yes, teenagers, especially of a certain composition of character, love feats. Yes, they are willing to jump through pain, starve, endure humiliation for the praise of a cool coach, for the win, just because they can't yet imagine all of the consequences and all of the long years of rehabilitation ahead. But where are the adults? What these brave children feel like when they can no longer be a source of wow success, simply because they have grown up or because they have been injured, to make sure they were just expendables to their beloved mentor. Well, there are plenty of others, and you are sent to waste without the bitterness of parting, without gratitude, without admiration of your feat, without asking for forgiveness, for not keeping your health, but with curses, insults, devaluing comments, accusations of betrayal, and with the hate of bleach. How is this even possible? Why isn't the ethics of mentorship discussed? After all, very toddlers are brought into this sport. Parents trust the coach with the health of their child. Dear parents, please think about it. If the coach is sure that without humiliation and rigidity, without ignoring injuries and hunger, there are no results, they are a very bad coach, no matter how many champions they have on their list. And you don't have to go to them, even if that's what the child wants. Sports have a lot of overcoming, that's normal. But sports should not turn into gladiator fights where living people, children, are maimed at the whim of the public. Well, I do agree that that is what is at stake here. And when I was reading that, I was thinking back to how many of those comments about accusations of betrayal, about the curses and insults, devaluing comments, when skaters are removed from the Eteri Tutberidze system that we hear about and have witnessed over the last several years. Really, since the retirement of Zagitova, it has just been like clockwork. And really before that, I mean, it has been one after another. Medvedeva going to Canada, Zagitova's taking a pause. Then we have Medvedeva coming back. We have what happened when Trusova and Kostornaia went to Plushenka and how they were mercilessly destroyed. We have seen Kanisheva, who didn't even reach the senior ranks in her career. There have been just so many athletes who have been dehumanized by this in the process, but there has always been another Team Tutberidze skater who has come up and almost distracted. How many people, even remember Darья Usacheva? Of course, yesterday, to distract from what's going on with Valieva, all of a sudden Usacheva was pushed back onto the ice to show that she is skating again. I mean, it's simply maddening to watch this continue to happen, and we see that there has been no stopping it. I was asked months ago if I thought that there would ever be an end to Team Tutberidze, and I thought that something really heinous would have to happen. At the time, I thought some sort of debilitating injury, but perhaps I think a doping on a grand scale at the Olympics may be the first sign that it is simply not a sustainable system. It's clearly a system that is on the verge of falling off of a cliff. It's like we're pouring gasoline all over a house and just daring someone to light a match at this point. I think we are seeing that these young athletes are extremely vulnerable. And while Kamila Valieva's vulnerability makes her such a beautiful figure skater, you have to wonder about the price she has paid to really get there, and what this can all mean for her. Meanwhile, there are banners. There's plenty of support for her within Russia, but how much of that is nationalism and how much of that is generally about Kamila Valieva herself? There is so much support for Eteri Tutberidze, the symbol of Russian dominance, and you just have to wonder what this is really all about beneath it all, and what it means if they allow her to compete at the Olympics. I do think that the ratings would be a spike for 1 or 2 nights, but what are we at risk at watching? What kind of impact would the last weeks have had on this young girl? If we are to watch her do a good short program and melt down in the free after all of the mental and physical exhaustion, what then? Imagine if the IOC and the CAS, allow this athlete to compete and then she does poorly. It almost becomes a referendum on their own, handling of doping. What does the future of doping even mean if they allow her to compete? This would mean that as long as you're an underage athlete, Doping is fine. Imagine if a 16-year-old gymnast were coming up. They'd be able to do the same thing, knowing basically that as long as you had a good excuse, doping is then fine. Because Kamila was talented, she was young, she was innocent, she's only 15. Well, at what age does it really become that you're no longer just innocent in all of this? These are parts of larger sports systems. This is systemic abuse. This is a systemic state-sponsored doping system that we are witnessing time and time again. Are the big questions being asked of how did she get the drug? Why is it okay? If she is able to compete, it really is a middle finger to integrity of the sport and really of the Olympic movement in general, unfortunately. And unfortunately, it's not Kamila Valieva's fault, but it is the reality of what it would represent if she is able to compete. And unfortunately, I do not believe that she should be able to compete here at the Olympics or even at the upcoming World Figure Skating Championships, because it is simply too in the face of everyone. It is simply under our nose now that we know exactly one of the drugs, perhaps of the drug cocktail that these figure skaters are being given. And you have to wonder what else is there that we even don't know about. Thank you. Good night.